It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.
Welcome to Dialogues with Dan, heard on Rockland World Radio every Tuesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to check out the archives of past programs, which you can access via the menu bar. And now, the host of Dialogues with Dan, Mr. Dan Winheim.
Richard, hi everyone, this is Dan, and tonight we have another live guest. I'm speaking with, actually, a repeat live guest. I'm speaking with Kerry Mills. I'd like to introduce Kerry Mills. Hi, Kerry.
Hi, Dan. Nice to see you. Thank you for having me again. You too.
Nice to see you also. Maybe you could tell us where you're from and a little about your background.
Oh, sure. So I come over from Westchester. My company is based from over there, and I work with people who have dementia. I work with families as well as professional caregivers and care partners that work with people who have dementia.
Yes. How long have you done this?
So I've been working with my own company for the last 3.5 years, but I've been working with this population for about 12 years.
Yes, and maybe you could share the progression, like where you first started and like how you moved on to now your own business.
Oh, sure. So I started in a little local nursing home. Like I said, about 12 years ago. And the day that I walked in for my interview, I was an activity assistant. And the director of activities said, "Oh, I don't think you're really going to stay." And I said, "Oh, I don't understand. Why not?" She said, "No, you're gonna go on and want to do other things." And sure enough, 8 months later, I had returned to school to get my master's because I wanted to run a nursing home. I thought that if people had to live in a nursing home, even though they had medical issues, they should at least still get to have a very fun life. That was sort of my take on it. And
excellent.
That sort of just moved me forward, and I started working for an assisted living that does memory care, and then after working with them for a number of years, I went on and started my own business. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kerry, you had mentioned before about Alzheimer's is a form of dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Dementia is the prognosis, and there's many different forms. Maybe you could explain to the people what that means and what dementia is.
So dementia is a set of symptoms. It's the thing that tells you something's wrong. So if you have a fever, for instance, and you went to the doctor and after doing a bunch of tests he said you had a fever, it would be really unhelpful because the fever is sort of the indicator that there's something else, right? Whether it's an infection, whether it's the flu, it could be anything, but it's sort of the thing that tells you something's wrong. So dementia is sort of like the fever. It's the thing that tells you something's not right. So we see the most common things that we see are frequent memory loss, getting confused, getting easily agitated, sort of personality or mood change, things like that. And so we look at that and we call that dementia, because it's this set of symptoms. And then what causes dementia could be a variety of things. So Alzheimer's disease is the most common, which is what we talk about the most, as well as strokes can cause a person to have dementia, brain injuries, small things like infections can cause a change in the way your brain functions, and then you get your infection under control and your dementia, quote unquote, goes away. As well as things like AIDS or cancer, depending on how they affect your brain, can cause you to have the symptoms of dementia.
Yes, but you said the dementia goes away, but that doesn't mean, you could still have, like, difficulties functioning, even though I'm confused. You said that dementia goes away, but dementia is like a permanent thing.
Right. So depending,
I guess
I can see why that would be confusing. Yeah. So depending on what's causing it. So like if you're just older and you get a urinary tract infection, which is common, you might start to have some symptoms of, trouble, your mind might feel a little bit foggy, or you're not remembering things you used to, or you don't have the same motivation. And we might look at that and start to say, that looks kind of like dementia, but then they go on an antibiotic and they return to where they were.
Yes.
It's sort of a temporary thing, as opposed to the other diseases are progressive diseases that will only get worse. And so that's why the dementia won't go away with them, because the cause of them doesn't go away.
So not in all cases is dementia permanent.
Right. In most cases, it's going to be.
Yes. Yeah. I see. Yeah, Kerry, could you tell us what people with dementia want?
What do they want? I think the first thing they want is for us to ask them that question. That would probably be the first thing. I think that's an awesome question that you just asked. What do they want? They want to be treated like people. They want to be given choice. They want independence. They want to have a say in things. They want people to talk to them. What they want is really no different than what you or I would want in any relationship.
Yeah, at least at the initial beginning of their dementia. Mm-hmm. As it progresses, they might not be able to voice or get their concerns across.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even though they may still have trouble sort of communicating those things to us, they still want the same thing. Even if they can't participate as much, we shouldn't change doing those things just because of their reaction, because they still want it just the same. So a lot of times you might have somebody who you want to take them to go for a walk, and they just say, no, 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 and they sit in their seat and they won't move. Well, a lot of times if you just go over and say, so would you like to go for a walk? They'll be more willing. So it's sort of the same thing. Like, you're still just giving them a choice. You're giving them an option. You're talking to them rather than treating them like a child and saying, you have to go for a walk right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I imagine people with dementia or Alzheimer's, they have different ways of understanding, or you need to get your point across different ways, either right or pictures.
Absolutely.
There's many different ways of getting their ideas across.
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
yes.
You're absolutely right. And those are great examples of ways to do so.
Yes. And could you tell us, what do you think caretakers want?
Aside from wanting the whole thing to go away and wishing it didn't happen, I think probably if they could have anything, it would be that the person that they're care partnering with would be happy, would be safe, and I think what they would want for them. So that's what they would want first and foremost. And then secondly, for themselves, I think a lot of them would like to have less guilt. Would like to, a lot of times we say, go take care of yourself, go get your nails done, go out to lunch with your friends. And while they would like to do those things, the responsibility that they have and the guilt that they have toward caring for this person that they love outweighs that other stuff so much that we think it will help them get their mind off of it. But most of the time, it doesn't seem to have that effect for them in their own mind. And so that's why if we're able to ensure that the person they love is safe and happy and well cared for, then they can easily go do things, for themselves.
Yes.
But it can't come, a lot of times I think they think it will come at the cost of the person they love not being able to have those things.
Sure. What are some things you might say or do, or your coworkers, what could they do to help alleviate this pressure or worry?
So I think it goes back actually to the first question you asked, which was, what do people who have dementia want? And so if we answer that question right, then we can make sure that we have the right things in place. So for instance, if I showed up at your house and said, I'm here and my job is to take care of you, your reaction, which is this, would be the same as most people who have dementia, is thank you anyway, but I don't need your help.
Yes.
So if instead I'm coming because I want to learn about how you got into radio, now all of a sudden you're more interested in this relationship, and I'm still achieving the same thing I set out to achieve when I showed up, which was to spend some time with you and make you happy so that your wife can go out and do something.
Oh,
right? So it's
yes.
kind of that same sort of thing where how can we alleviate that by making sure that we're putting the proper things in place, not just somebody who's going to show up and sit with them, because that's not very satisfying, but somebody who will come and really engage the person.
Yes. I imagine a big part is to get the family or the community involved with the patient.
Sure. Or the person. Yep.
What do you call them? Patients?
I call them persons. Yeah,
persons.
yeah. Because we all live with some sort of sickness, and we don't call ourselves patients. So for that reason, they're people, right? Unless they're at the doctor dealing with it. Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, a big part of today's interview is to talk about your newly released book. Would you mind holding it up
for
the camera?
Yeah.
And tell us about the name of it and maybe a little about the book.
Yeah. So the name of the book is called I Care, a handbook for care partners of people with dementia. And the meaning has it's two-pronged. So it's I care for you, but I also care about you. You know, it's sort of the essence of that word care. And so Jennifer and myself wrote the book because we wanted to fill a gap that we saw in the literary world for care partners that were trying to do this every day. If my dad was just diagnosed and I go out and I read everything, that doesn't mean it's going to make me any better at what I do to come home with my dad today, because his situation is different. And so everybody's situation is so unique. And so our goal in it was to write a book that would be helpful and practical and quick, but also personal. We wanted people to be able to relate quickly and then say, got it, I understand the principle of that, because good dementia practice is a way of thinking. It's not a way of doing. It's about thinking about the person. It's about how you interact. And so it's not just what you show up and it's not coming and taking blood pressure and doing it the right way. It's, you know, if you will, it's the interaction with people more than anything. So that was why that was our goal in writing the book.
Yes. And when did this book come out?
It came out this year, February.
Yes.
So, yeah, about 4 months ago or so.
And how could people who are listening, who are interested, how could they maybe get a copy or find out more about this?
Yeah. So
you have a website?
Yeah. They could go to my website, which is EngagingAlzheimer's.com, or they can go to Amazon. Either one. It's available on Amazon and all the major retailers and all of that. So either one.
Yes, and I think I wanted you to read a little of the book.
Okay.
And I think that would give the people a good sample.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yes.
So the preface of the book is actually a letter from people who have dementia to their friends and family. So it starts out, to my friends and family. I want to say thank you. I don't always say it, and I'm not always even aware of how often I should say it, but again, thank you. If my mind was clear and I could access all the words in my heart, I would still struggle to express my gratitude. I'm most grateful for your love you have shown me, especially when I make it difficult. Thank you for letting me do things and engage in my own life, even though it might cause more work for you at times. Thank you for not reminding me how much work I'm causing you. Your encouragement is uplifting. Thank you for not pointing out everything I do wrong and instead recognizing that I sometimes work so hard to do the simplest things. I appreciate that you value my effort more importantly than my outcome. Thank you for always including me, talking to me, and not treating me like I'm sick. I'm so aware of what goes on around me, and your effort to keep me involved makes the world of difference to me each day. While I don't know what tomorrow holds or how I will act or what I will say, thank you for treating me like the person I have worked toward being my whole life. Thank you for respecting me and for being so patient with me. I know it is not easy for you all the time, but I do hope that I have provided some relief, some joy, and some laughs for you along the way. I hate to think that I am the only one receiving. Thank you for being my partner. Love, your loved one with dementia.
Oh, wow, that really says everything you were talking about.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, thanks.
Thanks.
And so you had said people could find out more about the book on the website, which is iCare.com.
Or iCareBook.com.
iCareBook.com.
Yep.
And it's on Amazon. Are you involved with any other online businesses where the book's available?
I think that I don't really know much about like where online books can be found and all, but I do know that if that any of the major online book retailers do have it, Barnes and Nobles, all those kinds of guys.
Yes.
I know that you can order it from any one of them as well.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So you've gotten some positive feedback? I mean, this is the beginning.
Yeah.
The birth of the book.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
Yes.
I like that, the way you said that.
Yes. Do you think people don't care? Or is it just ignorance? Or are they just too busy living their lives, their own lives?
You mean in the way, what is your, you mean in the way that they're caring for their loved ones now?
Or do you think society, the people, like family members,
I understand.
society, people you meet at Starbucks,
Right.
do you think they're just ignorant? Or do you think they're scared? Or do you think they're in denial? Or do you think it's a combination?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of all of those
Yes.
things. Yeah, most certainly. I think on top of that, I think the ignorance is probably the first thing. People just don't know. And so, I mean, even just take, for instance, we're all familiar with Amber Alert, right? The signs on the highway when a child goes missing. And so now I think every single day this last week I've seen a Silver Alert, which means that there's an older person driving. So people don't really know what that means yet. But once people know what it means, then people become very in tune to it. So I think people are afraid of this disease because it's gotten such a bad reputation for so long, and our care models and our practices haven't always been what we know now to be the best practices. And so as we begin to change what that looks like, it will naturally change the way that people feel about this, it will change the stigma of the disease.
Yes.
But we're not there yet because we're kind of, like you said, I mean, the birth of the book is sort of, it's only the last 10 or 15 years that we've really been having a whole ton of people that are really kind of pushing this new mindset and this new way of practice. So it's new. It's in some ways.
Do you think there's, or could you give it like a name, like a bullet point name for this stage of life?
Carefree would probably be what I would call it, I mean, a person who has dementia is carefree. Everyone around them might be cared, it might be, might be stressed, but the person themselves actually, in many ways, can have a certain freedom that they couldn't have when they had all of the responsibility of life on their shoulders. And because they don't necessarily even realize how much of that responsibility has gone away, if they're feeling successful in what they're doing and we can give them that sense that they're handling everything well, then it could actually be a very nice time of life for many people.
Yes.
I mean, I realized I would have 100 people hating me for saying that. At the same time, I know that it seems kind of far-fetched. How in the world could that happen? Yeah, right?
Carefree?
But I think right now there's a woman who had a horrible husband. She had a difficult father. She was stressed her whole entire life. I mean, she had really dominant people in her life her whole time. When she got this disease, she smiled. She literally smiled for 5 years straight. So in her situation, she went from stressful life to a carefree life. So I'm not saying that all of us who've had a nice life might feel that way, but there's definitely a sense of, I can just relax now because I can't take on the pressure of the world. They can't because they can't focus on it the way that you and I can.
What about people who look at maybe someone with Alzheimer's or dementia and say, oh, poor thing, they don't even know what's going on. They're just a blank face. would think that's people that don't take it in and say, they're still there. They're just not as pronounced, but they're still a person, and you have to realize that maybe they're not, totally with every moment, but they're still people, and everyone deserves respect.
Well said. Amen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to cover the main topics of your book. I'll mention it, and you discuss it.
Okay.
Minimizing the care partner's fears, frustrations, and stress.
Yeah. So much of why people are so stressed and so frustrated and the fear comes from the fact that they don't necessarily know what's going on, what's going to happen, and everything that goes wrong then, it's like, is that the disease? Is that normal? Is that not normal? Then on top of that, especially with spouses, you have people who will say, my spouse is now lying to me, when really they don't remember. It's not that they're intentionally lying, they don't remember, So when you're able to then divide the difference between what's the disease and what's just a normal either aging progression or that person, it's a lot easier for families because now they kind of know what should I be doing different with them because of what's going on with the disease, and where do I just get to treat them like the person I've always treated. So it's to help kind of, because right now everybody kind of thinks everything changed overnight, and it's like nothing changes overnight. It changes over time, but it doesn't change overnight.
Exactly. Yes, and managing changes in communication. I'll say that again. Managing changes in communication, memory loss, and behavior. Using best care techniques.
So there's a number of, naturally, like you said before, their ability to communicate changes, that whether it's their ability to find their words, whether it's their understanding of words the same way that we do. And so even before you mentioned writing things down or giving them pictures, just as some examples of ways that we can do things different.
Yes.
But in addition to that, there's different techniques out there. Like there's something called space retrieval, which is to help people be able to hold on to information for a longer period of time using procedural memory instead of, working memory, if you will. So there's different techniques like that we explain what those are in the book so that people who are care partners will know, oh, gee, there's other things that I can do. The other part of that is explaining to families, like if you see somebody rummaging through a drawer, right? A lot of times we remove the drawer, like get rid of it, don't let them go near it, we lock it up. Well, they're doing that for a reason. And so if it's not that drawer, give them something else to rummage through so that they still have that sense of finding whatever they're looking for or organizing things, whatever was making them to do it in the first place.
Yeah, could you tell us how you picked up all this knowledge and different skills of this area?
Well, I mean...
School?
I can't even say. School helped with the administrative part of things, being able to help from an operational standpoint to manage a set of staff and run a building and do that sort of thing. But it's people with dementia that have taught us these things more than anybody else.
So it was on-the-job training.
On-the-job training, yeah, definitely.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
And I think that the third thing was making the home safe and supportive. All these things are in this book. Yeah, could you talk about that?
Yeah, it's the majority of people who have this disease live at home. I think it's something like 80% of people who deal with some form of dementia live at home. And so while we have all these best practices that we use in, hospitals and nursing homes and assisted living, it's the people at home that are then naturally struggling the most and have to make the most amount of changes to their daily life because their loved one isn't going and living in a setting that's already been designed for them. So the making the home safe and supportive is about, it's a huge checklist of just things that you can do based on what changes, based on what you see your loved one doing. So if it's safety, for instance, right, camouflaging exit doors, making sure that there's different kinds of locks, that they're not going to be knowing exactly what to do, things like that, or changing lighting in the home, pulling up rugs, putting up handrails, little things like that, so that the person with dementia will be able to stay at home and be much more independent, which will also take the pressure off of the care partner.
Those are great tips.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, and understanding changes in brain function.
Yeah. So that goes back to sort of what I was saying before. The brain is sort of programmed to operate a certain way. And so when the brain starts to change because of damage to it, we're going to see different behavior. And so the more that people understand what those changes are and what they look like, then they'll know better how to change what they do. The whole book is about the fact that you can't change a person who has dementia. You can change yourself. You can change your own attitude. You can change your own approach. You can change your interactions. You can hold your tongue. So how can we best do that? By understanding what's going on with them.
Yes.
That's the motivation as well. So.
And so I imagine you give different case scenarios in the book.
Oh, yeah.
And different areas of dementia.
Yeah.
You discuss that area.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lots of stories, lots of practical examples.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. And addressing financial and legal issues.
Yeah, it's an important issue, and so the best advice I can say is prepare for tomorrow but live for today. So some of those things have to get done right off the bat so that people aren't forced into crisis situations or forced to react in crisis situations.
Right. And Kerry, what else is out there to help caretakers? Other websites? Other books you maybe can mention? Or?
Yeah, well, there are tons of resources out there. It's kind of endless, quite frankly. Some of the ones that, for care partners that I would, work with who have a loved one with dementia, I think that if they get involved in a support group, that can certainly be very helpful for them. A lot of the Alzheimer's Association has them, as well as a lot of the local assisted livings and hospitals will have them, nursing homes. So I would recommend just sort of networking with other people, not so you can spend all this time focused on the disease, but as your life is changing, sometimes it's just helpful to have a friend who just recognizes you're going through something, that I know what it's like, now let's get on with our life, as opposed to feeling like you need to explain it to every friend that's out there.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely one place that people can go for support. As far as other books, there's lots of different ones. There's lots of memoirs out there. There's which a lot of people enjoy reading. There's a book called I'm Still Here, which is another fantastic book by Dr. John Zeisel that I would recommend. So yeah, there's some good stuff out there. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, and Kerry, I imagine you speak out about dementia and give lectures. Maybe you could share your email, the website again, maybe a phone number.
Sure. How
people could contact you.
Oh, sure, yeah. So you're absolutely right. So my email, which is easy, is Kerry, Kerry, at KC Mills. Kerry Catherine stands for KerryCatherineMills.com. So KC Mills. My phone number is 914-962-0997. And again, my website is EngagingAlzheimers.com.
Very good. Yeah, Kerry, in our last few minutes, well, maybe you could share what you see in the future. You mentioned about the silver alerts, other things. I imagine there's many things.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that's being done, a lot of work being done in technology, different apps, different computer program, brain games. There's a lot of stuff that's coming out with all of that. There's one, I was listening to a lecture the other day, which I'm kind of excited. It's an app that will be able to read pain just by recognizing a person's face, which is awesome because I think we highly underdiagnose pain in people who have dementia. So there's lots of tools like that are coming out. I think in general there's a lot of new service industries that are kind of popping up, kind of grassroots stuff to help people while they're at home to be more engaged in their own life. So there's people who come in and do activities, or people who will, a lot of in-home services and stuff, which has been happening, but I think it's a little bit more on the rise.
And how about medications?
Yeah, I don't know that we're a whole lot further ahead. Right now, not most of the medications, but a lot of what we're working on is the goal is to see how we can cure the disease. There's a lot of work being done for different vaccinations to see how we can avoid the disease altogether. Any given day, I think there's something like 12,000 research projects going on just in the U.S. for this disease. So, we're certainly working toward it, but we're not any closer than we've been for the last few years as far as finding a drug that will help to slow down the progression. Those are kind of the same staple drugs for right now.
But would you say that the strategies and techniques people as a whole are learning to, like strategies, like have come a long way.
Oh, yeah.
And people are much better able to use their own techniques.
Oh, yeah. I think to some degree, good dementia care will always be a basket of treatment, if you will, right? So if somebody has high blood pressure, they go on a medication, but the doctor still says you have to lose weight, you have to exercise. So there's the lifestyle change, there's decreasing your stress, which affects your work and your relationship. It's not just one thing, even though one thing might be a major helper. Don't put all your eggs in the basket of medications. There's so much that can be done today that will change your life with this disease, whether we have medication or don't. So You're absolutely right, yeah.
Oh, excellent. Well, I think we're right about to end.
Great.
So I'd like to thank
you again, Dan.
Kerry Mills.
Thank you.
For joining. You're welcome.
My pleasure.
For joining us on Dialogues with Dan. This has been Kerry Mills on Dialogues with Dan. Everyone, have a great week. Peace.
Excellent.
It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com